It's my turn now. I first met Richard as a parent at Capitol Hill Magnet School. Jessica attended there, I think. She wasn't classmates with either of our children who attended, but that's where we met. And I remember knowing of Richard because he was a big shot. As John pointed out, he'd been brought here by Governor Perpich, I believe, to tell Minnesotans about trade globally in the China that was opening up. And I'm in the business where big shots want to talk to me because they want their stories on the news hour. But this was not Richard. I remember coming out of that meeting saying he was just interested in me and curious about me and so generous, and that really impressed me. And I found a lot of corroborating testimony in contacting some of his close friends who are unable to be here or who are unable to come here. And one of them is Bill Ma, Richard, who now lives in San Francisco. And he went to high school and was taught by you in Hong Kong. And he said this was a high school that was highly structured and strict, and they had teachers from New Zealand, Canada, France, and then there was the American, who was Richard Bohr, and he was the only one that was approachable. So I would go to him, and he would listen, and he would be encouraging. He always wanted us to be curious. Richard was the only teacher, Bill Ma said, who went from being teacher to teacher and friend, even came over to our house to visit with his then newlywed spouse, Gail. Bill Ma went on to study in California, where he still lives, and kept in touch or reconnected with the Boers, and was on hand or nearby when Father Bohr was born. So he knows Father Bohr when he knew Father Bohr when he was baby Bohr. I put the word out to the small group for what I call roast-worthy anecdotes that people might recall about Richard. And I called one of his oldest friends, a roommate at Harvard, and a fellow student in East Asian Studies, Charlie Litzinger. Not a damn thing. He said, I can't think of anything that will make Richard's face turn red. He was very social, he was very popular, always the center of attention, especially with the ladies. Very calm, grounded in all that he did, very organized. And, says Charlie Litzinger, he was a very witty person with a sense of humor beneath what we all know as his very priestly demeanor. I had a chance to see this from time to time, but notably when we were in China together, and he came along as an academic advisor on a reporting trip that I made with my team years ago. Now, contrary to my appearance, I actually have shallow roots in China. My parents and older siblings lived in Shanghai until 1950. And so Richard and I went into the cathedral in Shigaowei to just poke around, and we entered this huge church. It was just the two of us, and we think one, maybe two others in the church, if you include dead people as people in the church. That's because there was a coffin that was closed, a body presumably lying in repose until the service later on. And we were standing here in front of this coffin, in front of the altar, and there was this sound that kept echoing through the whole sanctuary. And it was a peculiar kind of yipping sound. Remember that, Richard? I do. And we had no idea where the sound was coming from because it was echoing all over. And here was Richard Bohr, Harvard Divinity School, in this very sober, somber environment, sacred environment. He turns to me and he whispers in my ear, Fred, I think he wants to be let out. Let me see. I picked up this habit from Richard. Many of you went out with Richard. He always carried these little cards in his pocket and jotted his notes down, so he never forgot. Richard and Charlie went different ways briefly, because in the second year Richard departed East Asian Studies to go to the Divinity School at Harvard. And so Charlie has no recollection of the time when Richard met Gail, which was during this period. They reconnected after they'd met, and so I asked Charlie, I said, was he a changed man? Was he transformed in his new paired incarnation? And he said, he was. How could you not, this is a direct quote, how could you not be with a woman like that? We all know that Gail and Richard have been a real force in this community, in every community that they touch. Both of you have just mentored countless young people, and that began at home. You know, it's said that history does not repeat itself, but oftentimes it rhymes, and it has echoes. And you can just look at Jessica and Aaron. Jessica, wow. You know, when I look at how far and wide these two have traveled. Jessica, your service is something that commands our thanks, and we offer that to you. Can't go wrong with a woman like that. Charlie. Aaron, we were so honored to attend your ordination in Milwaukee. Some of us didn't realize that it takes 2 to 3 times the amount of time to get an SJ at the end of your name as it does an MD. You could have been 2 neurosurgeons by the time. I want to end with my own version, roast-worthy version of Richard. We were, as I said, in China. He was the expert on that long-ago trip. But I think he'd give himself less than an A grade on this desk. We had a colleague of mine, Kevin McAndrews, whose spouse had asked him to bring home to America a foo dog. And so it was Richard, Kevin, and I that went to this tchotchke store in Shanghai to find a foo dog. We had no idea what we were looking for, and the retail clerk had no idea what we were asking. Neither Kevin nor I spoke English. I spoke Chinese. Forgive me. Neither did the retail clerk speak English. But so we called our Chinese expert, and I don't know whether it was a Shanghainese dialect that was the language barrier, but Richard could not get across to this clerk what we were looking for. So he resorted, as one would, to barking. Literally. Yep, 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 yep. We came out of this shopping expedition empty-handed, but with this very funny anecdote. Richard, I think I probably speak for everyone in this room and everybody who knows you, including Charlie Litzinger, who has a few years on you. And he said, I've been trying to be like Richard. I've been trying to emulate Richard for 60 years, and I've failed miserably. You are, as Kevin McAndrews, who we lost a few years ago, would say, the world's nicest man. Thank you so much. And I'm going to encore what Kevin asked us to do, and to raise your glass, whatever is in it, for one more toast. One more toast. Extraordinary soul. Richard,